This episode of Midco Sports Magazine is presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Hello, welcome once again to Midco Sports Magazine. We've got some big ideas on this month's show. Like the idea that some special people should have an Olympics of their own and that 50 years later, Special Olympics is running strong. And the idea that if you build a better baseball bat, you can change the game. South Dakota's connection to the Sam Bat is coming up. But we start with a big idea that started as two ideas and how a grocery store giant and a regional hospital came together to create a huge annual event that brings kids and their sports heroes together. Here's Jay Elson.
There is no shortage of summer traditions in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Some were born naturally, while others were created for cause. Brad Coleman still remembers the moment Sanford hatched its plan to offer something new to the community.
Kelby and I had lunch and he said, let's come up with something where we can do something for kids in the summertime, some kind of a cool event. And we thought about it and we thought, well, what about a football camp where we can bring kids in? And we did that.
The inaugural celebrity football camp was held in 1998. Its first guest was NFL Hall of Famer Walter Payton.
He was the most genuine, outgoing, personable human being I've ever met in my entire life. His speech wasn't so much about athletics and, I'm this professional football player, but it was about character. It was about work ethic. It was about doing the right things. That was an amazing moment.
2 years later, Hy-Vee started a similar venture, offering kids a chance to learn from legends in a variety of sports through free instructional clinics. Their event and the celebrity football camp would operate independently through 2004. That's when the two sides agreed less was more, and Legends, as we know it now, was born.
We said, you know what, we're doing the same thing. We're trying to raise money for kids. We're trying to get kids involved in activities. Why don't we combine this thing and see what we can do?
I think the merger was very important. When you take two powerhouses like Sanford and Hy-Vee and put them together and come up with a plan to be able to give back, I just think it was key for us pulling off a bigger event.
So in 2005, we came together for the first time, and we saved a lot of money because we had one expense for celebrities, one expense for the banquet, all that kind of thing, and we were able to bring all of our sponsors together, and really since 2005, it's just taken off.
Taken off in terms of opportunities offered and, more importantly, lives impacted. According to Coleman, over 4,000 people participated in either the Legends Banquet, golf tournament, free clinics, or the football camp in 2017 alone. The result was a record $210,000 in Legends grants being awarded to various youth athletic programs in the region. That brings the event's post-merger total to $1.89 million, a number that was impossible to predict in the beginning, and one that's difficult to comprehend today.
Our goal was to keep getting bigger and bigger every year, but to do what we've been able to do over the last 19 years now, no. It's been amazing to sit back and think of the fact that we've been able to give back $1.89 million over the last 20 years for a youth. It's just a youth thing that we do. That's amazing. We're a one of a kind in the country. There's nothing else like it.
I just think of how many thousands of kids have been affected with either by a grant, a free clinic, or a scholarship. It's got to be tens of thousands.
As the number of Legends participants has grown, so has its reputation, particularly among the celebrities it depends on. Coleman and company have always managed to attract some of the most iconic names in sports, but it's gotten easier. That's because, like the sponsors that have supported the project over the years, the athletes believe in its mission.
And there's not an athlete out there that doesn't want to help kids or give back to kids. There's not a single one. So when we ask them to come in for X amount of dollars, where they might get the same amount to do a talk at 30 minutes for a corporate outing, and they're there to sign autographs for 2 hours or whatever, where they're gonna give us 2 days for the same amount of money. That is really special.
The emotional rewards for those who put it all together have been endless.
1, 2, 3, defensive back, let's go!
Every high five justifies the grind, and every smile is a reminder that it's all about the kids.
I think that every single year that we've had this event, it's grown, it's gotten bigger, we've raised awareness, we keep helping the community. I don't see an end in sight. You know, is there something bigger in the horizon? Maybe. I don't think we can predict that quite yet, though.
The crystal ball says, I think the future is bright. We want to continue to raise more money every year. Sanford and Hy-Vee are so committed to our communities and youth and what we do. I don't see this ever going away.
And joined by Jay Elson, and this event, Jay, there's some huge names that come in for these celebrity athletes, and some are current, some are retired. But how do they go about getting these people here? Is it an agent? Is it an agency? How do they get them here?
Well, there is a guy that's involved with this process that they've gone to from the start to help arrange for these athletes to come to town. And there's always a priority list of men and women in the different sports that they have, people that they'd like to get. And for one reason or another, a lot of them just don't work out, and so they kind of work their way down. A perfect example of that is this year, a couple of guys that they've wanted for a really long time. Johnny Bench, the big-time Hall of Fame catcher, and then Robert Parrish, the long-time Boston Celtic, have both been at the top of their priority list for a really long time, and for one reason or another, just never fit into their schedules. Happened to work out this year. Boom, here they are.
All right, it's a great event, great story. Thanks a lot, Jay Elson. Well, UFC fighter Ben Nguyen is one of the celebrity guests this year at the Legends for Kids, and he is in this month's segment on the science of sports.
Sports science is really understanding the physiology and the biomechanics behind athletic performance and health and safety. MMA fights are very challenging. Each round is 5 minutes, and the fighters only get 1 minute to rest in between rounds. And 1 minute isn't sufficient to fully recover between the high energy output from the previous round. And we can see with this movement drill that high-level MMA fighters are very fluid and very efficient with their movement, so they're not wasting a lot of energy. This is where conditioning really comes into play, because the more conditioned athlete, you're going to be able to recover and return at a higher percentage of their capacity in subsequent rounds.
Up next, one of the groups that gets a big boost from Legends for Kids is a special organization that is celebrating half a century in South Dakota.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. We are celebrating big ideas on the show this month, and there is a South Dakota organization that is celebrating 50 years of making sure that everybody gets in the game. Here's Kelly Stewart.
Ask anyone what the word sports means to them, and you'll get a whole playbook of answers. For some, it's the championships that immediately come to mind. Others think of the tough losses, or the buzzer beaters, the rivalries, the injuries, the lessons. But behind every answer lies one common theme: the inclusion of being part of a team. Being part of something bigger than yourself. And that's something that wasn't always a possibility for those with disabilities. Until the Special Olympics.
Inclusion and unity is out there and is needed in a variety of different ways. Not just those with disabilities, but the impact of unifying a community to support those that are less fortunate, to support those that need a friend, that need a teammate. The importance of that is out of this world.
Special Olympics South Dakota started in 1968. Yes, if you are doing the math, that means this year, 2018, is a big one. It's the 50th anniversary of unifying athletes of all abilities and changing lives here in the Rushmore State, and also taking these South Dakotans' abilities to the national level.
Eunice Kennedy Shriver started the very first USA Games at Soldier Field in Chicago. And now Special Olympics South Dakota did not participate in that particular games. However, that was the year that Special Olympics South Dakota said, hey, we need to be a part of this. Let's start organizing. So in 1968 was the first year that Special Olympics was coming together, started to train and get ready for competition. In 1969, Special Olympics South Dakota had their first state games, that first track meet. And then in 1970, Special Olympics South Dakota had a presence in Chicago at Soldier Field for that USA Games, again put on by Eunice Kennedy Shriver.
When most people think of Special Olympics, they think of an annual track meet. And that's not necessarily wrong, as that was the original event. But in 50 years, a lot can change. And it has.
I did volleyball today. I got first place in volleyball today.
I did running today.
I'm happy to be here, to be with my teammates, and to deadlift and bench press.
I did good. I did second place and first.
Even in Nordquist's 10 years with the organization, the number of South Dakota athletes has grown from 1,300 to 2,100.
You know, we have 26 competitions throughout the year, throughout the state. Plus, now we do young athletes, children ages 2 to 7. We have free health screenings at our state events. We have, we have a Strider bike program. We've turned it into a lot more than just a track meet, shall we say.
Change is great. Growth is great. But with these great things comes a price, literally. Special Olympics South Dakota is an independent nonprofit organization which is not part of the United Way federal or state governments. All funding comes from caring individuals, businesses, and organizations. But rewind back to the start of it all and remember the inclusion that athletics bring. Over the years, that's one thing that hasn't changed. And no matter an athlete's ability, sports have a way of bringing all walks of life together. Enter the Legends for Kids events of SD.
Legends has been one of those constants that have truly been there for us year after year. When I started 10 years ago, we received a Legends grant, and we've had one every year since. We'll get our athletes to come out to some of the clinics that the Legends put on and so on, and when our athletes are out there, they're always embraced by the participants, by the celebrities that are there, by the workers, by the volunteers and everything. And Legends truly wants to help us grow. They've oh my gosh, the number of things that they've helped support that has truly been not necessarily flashy stuff, but it's stuff that we need, things that we need, equipment that we need. It's just amazing that, you know, the things that they support that have helped us grow our mission, and we can't thank them enough for the support they've given us.
50 years of unifying, 50 years of inclusion, but most importantly, 50 years of changing thousands of lives for the better.
Once you get involved with Special Olympics, whether volunteer, coach, whatever it might be, unified partner, it gets in your blood. You come out and you get involved with our athletes, and there's no doubt about it. You will be doing it for life. It's that contagious, shall we say?
And joined now by Kelly Stewart. And for one thing, I think you really enjoyed doing this story.
Yeah, it was awesome. Just anything with athletics, of course, but just you think about the joy that sports have brought everyone throughout their lives, and just to see more people get involved and feel that joy of competing, playing with a team, the wins, the losses, everything. It's so rewarding. So.
And when you talk about this organization, Special Olympics, is inclusive, you really mean it, right?
Oh yeah, competition starts at age 8. That's when they can officially compete, but there's an 80-year-old bowler in Aberdeen. So it's pretty much as long as you want to be active, want to compete, want to participate, there's a spot for you, which is so awesome to see.
All right, great work. Thanks a lot, Kelly Stewart. Up next on Midco Sports Magazine, the story of the South Dakota native named Sam who had the big idea to build a better baseball bat.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. Our next big idea this month is a baseball bat. A better bat, though, than any major leaguer had ever held in their hands. And it was, and it is still made by a man from South Dakota. First of all, they just look cool. No aluminum or composite materials, just wood, beautifully painted, lovingly lacquered, and identifiable by the Sam Bat logo. They've been used by some of the greatest hitters in the game. Barry Bonds used a Sam Bat in 2001, the year he set the Major League record with 73 home runs. Current Milwaukee Brewer Ryan Braun says he has used a Sam Bat his entire professional career.
It was one of the first wood bats that I ever tried. I've heard good things about it from a few guys who had used them. First time I tried it, kind of fell in love with the wood, the consistency, the sound of the ball made coming off the bat.
Professional baseball has always had a rule that says bats must be made of wood. And in the late 1800s, that meant mostly pine and hickory, and bats were made from axe handles and wagon wheels and came in all shapes and sizes. The first Louisville Slugger was made in 1884. For most of the 1900s, most bats in the major leagues were made of ash wood. But that would change in a major league way, and that is where Sam Holman comes in.
I grew up in Washington Springs, South Dakota. I attended right through the end of high school.
His father was a veterinarian, and his family lived in Washington Springs in the 50s and 60s. And though he would later have a huge impact on the game, Holman had a casual relationship with baseball as a kid.
Well, Jerry Cameron was the coach. For some reason, he put me on third base, and I think the pitcher lived in terror of me anytime I tried to throw to first. So I don't think I was ever a very good baseball player, but that was the position I played when I was a young kid.
In the 1970s, Holman moved to Canada, and he did some woodworking and construction as a stagehand for the National Arts Center.
So I met the cream of the Canadian acting community and a large part of the American acting and singing community. So it was a very good experience in learning how to deal with professional people. That kind of definitely helped me when I started up this business.
Sam Bat is the original Maple Bat Company. Holman started it in his garage, and it grew to change the major league game. In essence, he simply built a better bat. Holman had a friend who was a scout for the Montreal Expos, and they were sitting in a pub one day in 1996. The scout was back from spring training and told Holman that the team was breaking too many bats. So he challenged Sam to come up with a solution.
I thought, boy, I know nothing about baseball bats. I'd better go to the library and start reading. So I went down to the Ottawa Public Library. They claimed they had 3 books. I only found one. It was Adair's book on the physics of baseball, which was actually a very good book to read. It's one of the few that actually mentions anything about bats or anything about how far a ball might go off of one and what's the relationship between the bat and the ball.
He determined that maple wood, specifically rock maple, was the best for a bat. It would split and splinter less and would make more solid contact with the baseball. Legend is Holman made the first Sam Bat out of a piece of a maple staircase, and his scout friend got it into the hands of former Toronto Blue Jays star Joe Carter.
Meeting Joe Carter at the very beginning was very fortuitous. Joe had no fear of talking about things, and he just said, "You really have something different here, stick with it."
Joe Carter eventually introduced the new Maple Bat to Barry Bonds, and Bonds set the home run record in 2001, and the Sam Bat started to fly out of the factory. Today, more than 200 major leaguers swing sandbats, and they are actually a small percentage of the overall clientele.
Right now we carve well over 200 different models for baseball players all over the world. And they know what they want, you know. We don't have to tell them what they want, they tell us.
Holman estimates that his company has turned out well over 200,000 bats in the last 22 years. That is a lot of lumber and a lot of quality control. It's not easy to find the right raw materials, the right combination of grain and density and moisture content, and only perfect maple wood will make a bat to the sandbat standards.
Basically, you have 5 pounds of wood and you're turning it into 2 pounds of bat. And in that process, we weigh about 3 or 4 times as we cut it down. We were looking for flaws in the wood and also to make sure that we don't waste any time on it. If we find a flaw, we reject it at that point.
I love the consistency of the product as much as anything. You know, I think for all of us, we're looking for a bat that we're comfortable with, confident in, and that we know what we're getting ourselves into. So just the consistency is probably the thing I like most about the product.
It's not easy to get exactly what you want. It's something that we've become very proficient at.
Holman is the first to admit that his is an improbable success story, from South Dakota farm kid to consultant and confidant to the best hitters in baseball. He has made souvenir and ceremonial bats and presented them to presidents and to royalty. But maybe the highest endorsement of his venture, the greatest compliment over the years, has come from a pitcher, former New York Yankee Mariano Rivera, the all-time saves leader in Major League Baseball.
I'm in New York City in the stadium, and he comes up to me and he says, "Sam, I want you to know one thing." And I go, "You know, what's that?" And he says, "Your bat is my enemy." So.
Thank you for watching. You can find this episode and all episodes of Midco Sports Magazine on YouTube.
This has been Midco Sports Magazine, presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.